What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikaPikaPapa, and I am bringing you my most ambitious project to date. I put a ton of work into this, and I am really, really excited to show this to you guys. I think this could be a ton of fun. I'm hoping that this becomes a series that we track and we keep up with and we do as this channel continues to grow and evolve. And I think there's just all kinds of cool implications further down the road if we keep up with this. Now, the whole reason I did this is because we've been doing some awesome videos as of late, right? Like, everybody remembers this one right here. So this is all of the sets from Sun and Moon era, the top 20 singles cards, and their price movements over the last 6 months. So we added a heat chart to this. Like, we looked for patterns, we looked for commonalities. Like, we wanted to identify, like, hey, how can we get ahead of the curve in Sword and Shield now that we've seen how Sun and Moon has performed? Another video that we did, we looked at booster boxes, right? We looked at, hey, where did they start off at? Where are their prices now? How is that ranked in, like, are the top sets performing like the top sets 6 months down the road? How do they compare versus their top 20 price gains? How do they compare from an age chart? We looked at all of that. You also know that we've always looked at this, right? This is Elite Trainer Box rate of return versus Pokemon Center exclusive rate of returns versus Booster Box rate of returns. We do so much data dives on here, and we have so much fun doing it. But at the end of the day, I thought it's a lot. How do we streamline it? How do we kind of consolidate it into one thing? And I think I have a very interesting proposal. Now, I don't normally ask for subscribers this early in the video, but I've shown you a ton of work that we've done, so I'm going to do my selfless plug now. Listen, we do all kinds of cool data research. We have a ton of fun. We bring a ton of energy. If that's something that you're into, I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. If you have questions or comments, I'm going to ask for some responses. Drop them in the comments down below. I respond to each of them personally, and I'm telling you right now, we have some awesome stuff that we're going to talk about in this video. So when I was thinking about all of these different things that I want to do that we talk about on this channel, there are some challenges that are associated with it, right? We talk about booster boxes and ETBs and their crazy price appreciation. We talk about them from a buy and hold perspective. But one of the challenges of that is, hey, listen, I don't live in a thumbnail, but I also don't live in a Georgia mansion. Like, storage is a real concern. Finding adequate storage for them. Like, you don't want to throw them in a garage, right? It's got to be air conditioned. It's got to be, you don't want them sitting in the sunlight. So there's a lot of factors. There's a lot of challenges when you get to the point where you want to have maybe a booster box or two of every era. You want to have an ETB of every set. You want to have a Pokemon Center exclusive ETB. That is a real challenge. The other thing that we understand is, listen, after looking at the Sun and Moon stuff, if we had a crystal ball and a time machine, all of us would have gone back 12, 14 months and we would have picked up a bunch of these singles that have appreciated in value. But the reality is, 14 months ago, none of us thought they were going to appreciate in value, or else we would have already had them in our collection. So the reality is, picking the top singles from these sets is relatively hard to do. Yes, you're going to get lucky every once in a while, but at the end of the day, it is challenging to be consistent in picking the big hitters every single time. The other thing, and this is a challenge for me too, is I love investing in high-end cardboard. I mean, I have some crazy expensive football cards and baseball cards, and I want to do the same thing in the Poke space, but you're always challenged with big macroeconomic things that are going on, right? We've got a war in Ukraine, like everybody's talking about the debt ceiling. I have no doubt that they'll do what they always do. They'll fly in the 13th hour, sign a deal, and everything will be hoorah. But there's always all these macroeconomic levers going on, and sometimes having exposure to a $17,000 Charizard base set, first edition, PSA 9, like, that's a lot of risk, right? Not everybody wants to do that, but a lot of us still want some exposure to that. And then this is the single most challenging thing for me, is separating collecting from investing. I think a lot of people have this belief that because I'm such a data hound and such a data nerd, that I really only focus on the investing side of Pokemon. And literally nothing is further from the truth. I got into Pokemon because my kids love it, because I collect everything that I can. We have so much fun ripping wax, and nobody loves PSA Day more than my kids. Like, we love this hobby. Now, I always say this, listen, my goal is to provide this information to you. I want you to play chess when everybody else plays checkers. What I want is, I know all of us work really hard for our money, so I want us to be informed. I want us to have the tools at our disposal when we come to spending that money. So listen, one of the challenges for me though is, when I have things, sometimes I buy things as an investment, but the problem is I fall in love with it and then I never want to sell it. I just want to hold on to it. It happens with PSA all the time. I send cards out to PSA to get them graded. I'm like, okay, as soon as they come back, I'm going to put them on eBay. I'm going to use those funds to buy more cards. They get back from PSA and they're so dang pretty, I can't sell them, and I sit on them. So I was thinking, like, I wish there was a way for me to have maybe one or two Elite Trainer boxes or one or two booster boxes here in the house that I can have and I can display and I can show everybody. We can rip if we want to, like, part of the collecting side of things that I love so much. But I think Pokemon cards and sealed product over the long run is going to be a great alternative asset from a price appreciation and an investing standpoint. So what did I do with all of these crazy thoughts and all of this crazy information? I thought about the stock market, and I thought about index funds. So in the stock market, you can buy index funds. And basically what index funds do is they take one price, you pay $100 for an index fund, and it takes that $100 and it's dispersed among a basket of investments. You can invest in energy, you can invest in the S&P 500, you can invest in the entire stock market, international emerging funds. There's an infinite number of index funds out there. And I thought, hey, for fun, why don't we put some Pokemon index funds together? Now, I'm not building this out. All of this is just conceptual, but I'm also super entrepreneurial, and I'm willing to take risks at times. So who knows? If I get good feedback from this, if we track this for a year and all looks good, maybe that's what PikaPikaPapa will evolve into, especially if I feel like it can provide a great service to investors. We've talked about a lot of challenges right here. The best ideas in the world come when you can solve a problem for people who have an interest in it. So with that being said, what is this going to look like? Here it is. So I started with a Charizard Ultimate Index Fund. So I looked at the 15 highest valued English Charizards according to Polkadata.io. So these are them listed. Now, I put a couple of gates in here. You have to put gates in. So I wanted them to be graded by PSA because single cards, especially these older cards, like I want to make sure that they're going to hold and retain their value. I don't want any questions as to, is it lightly played, medium played? I didn't want to deal with any of that. So I wanted them to be graded by PSA, which is the leading authority when it comes to grading in all card spaces. So I also said, hey, listen, if a PSA 10 is greater than $10,000, I didn't want to include it because I just felt like the market for that isn't quite as frothy as below $10,000. But if the PSA 10 was greater than $10,000, I was going to the PSA 9 no matter what. You'll see that in the very first slot there. The Charizard Holo Base Set First Edition PSA 10s go for way more than I could ever afford, way more than I would want to put in an index fund. But the PSA 9 goes for $16,000. So that's more than 10 grand. But again, that fits into the parameters here. I also really wanted to make sure that it had a population of greater than 200. And I did that because I want some form of liquidity. I want to be able to sell and buy and make moves in these cards down the road. And again, this is all fictitious. This is all in my crazy little brain here. So this is what I came up with. So you'll see from top to bottom, you'll see their prices, you'll see the PSAs, you'll see that the most expensive ones ended up in PSA 9s because the 10s were either too expensive or had too low of a population. But then you get to the Blaine's Charizard Holo from the Gym Challenge First Edition. That's $4,000 for a PSA 10, population 376. The Neo Destiny. This was really cool. Like I had a ton of fun pulling this list. I had a ton of fun doing research into these cards. These are some beautiful pieces of cardboard. And then you'll see it goes all the way down to the Charizard GX from Hidden Fates, which is at $710, a card we've been talking about a lot over the last couple weeks. So now that I've understood, okay, these are the cards that I want to invest in, this is the price, these are the grades, these are the populations, where do we go from there? This is what I came up with. Now, you have already seen column 1 where we have the card name, you've already seen column 2 where we have the price, and then the PSA, and then the population. So I had to decide, how are we going to weigh these cards and what is the price of a quote-unquote fictitious share going to be? So if I'm trying to sell this product to somebody, you have to buy a share, which gives you a right to a percentage of these cards. So I picked $10,000. Now you could do 1,000 if you want, just move the decimal place over. You could do 100 if you want, move the decimal place over twice. I decided to use 10,000 because it made the math easy, it made the numbers big enough to understand, but you need to understand that all you're doing is moving decimal places if you want to do $1,000 or $100 instead. So in the pink, you'll see evenly distributed funds. And in that, what I meant was $10,000 divided by 15 is $667. So if I take $667 and I buy that amount of each of these cards, you're going to get a certain percentage of the card. Now, if you look at the very top one, Charizard Holo Base Set First Edition, the price on that is $16,000. So if you buy $667 worth, you don't have a whole lot of that card. You end up with 4%, which is in the gray column to the left. You go all the way down to the Charizard GX Hidden Fates column, and you see that, hey, $667 versus a price of $710, you actually end up with 94%. You almost have a full card. So that is how this column works out. Then if you look at the yellow column, I did this by weight. So for this, I basically took $16,144 for the Charizard Holo Base Set First Edition. The sum of all of the cost of the cards is $57,000. So basically, the Charizard Holo Base Set First Edition is 28% of that $57,000. So I did this yellow column by weight, and you'll see that you end up with roughly 18% of every single card. Why did I do it two different ways? Because this is purely experimental, right? And I want to see, looking at it two different ways over the next couple months or over the next year, how it turns out. Maybe one way far outperforms the other. I don't know, but it is going to be a ton of fun to look at. Now, to the right of that, you're going to see a change in price percent. I just threw random numbers in there, right? I wanted to say, okay, let's say the price changes X amount. I didn't even put a time frame. You can assume these price changes happen in a day, a week, a month. It doesn't matter. So I just put in these random price changes, and then you'll see the dollar amount that's associated with that. So the Charizard Holo base set first edition, it's $16,144. If it appreciates, if it goes up 12%, that represents a gain of almost $2,000. Now, if you only own 4% of that card, right, if you did the even distribution, you only own $667 worth of that card, you would only realize $80, right, because you only own 4% of that card. However, if you look at the by weight distribution, since you own 18% of that card, you would recognize $340 worth of that. That is why when you're thinking about building these out, that is why the weights and the distribution matters. Full spoiler alert. I am not an index fund creator, okay? This is all, I did this on an airplane. I had a 3-hour plane flight and I did all of this. So if this is the wrong way to look at it, I don't know. But the reality is we created this, we're gonna track it, and this is how we're gonna look at it going forward. So one of the things that I wanted to call out is this. In this scenario, I'm going to show you another scenario on the next slide, and then we're going to get into all the different sets, and I'm going to get into my very specific ask of you after that. So in this set, look, the top end is where we have a lot of the gains, right? 12%, 8%, 6%, then it drops 13% for the fourth card. And then in the bottom, you see a lot of gains, up 20%, up to, you know what I mean? You see that. And the overall gain, so the overall change in price is 12%. So the sum of all the changes in prices is 12%. Now, what you'll see here is, look, most of the price appreciation is there at the top. Most of the price depreciation is at the bottom, right? -18, -8, -9, but still the total change in price is 12%. Now the dollar change and the weight are the same because we have equal weights in all of them, so it's up 4.5%. But when you look at the even column, you gained a modest 0.8%. Still, up is up, but you didn't recognize all of the gain that the weighted column did. So now I went in here and I said, well, what if we flip the script? What if the losses are at the top and the gains are at the bottom? Let's see what happens. And this is what it came out with. Now, another thing I want to call out is, look, the sum of the total change in price, it's still 12%. You add up that whole column, it's still 12%. But because all of the losses were at the top and we have an overproportionate of exposure to the top, right? Because that's where most of the money is. We own 18% of that, just like we own 18%. You'll see that the weighted one is down 4.4%. So we lost money. But the even column is still sitting there at 0.8%. So you still gained. Even though your big hitters lost, you still were able to eke out a small gain. So that is why distribution matters. That is why weighing the cards matters. Now, the other big thing to call out here is look at the dollar change, -$1,900, -500, -200, -500. Even if you went with the weighted one on the right, you still, versus having exposure to those individual cards, instead of having that massive loss, you still are only down 4.4%. So this is the Charizard example. I'm going to go into some other sets that I decided to look at, but what I need from you in the comments down below, I only have 6 things that I'm looking at. I want 10. I want you to tell me what other 4 sets or sealed products or items you would like us to index really for the future. I don't know when we're going to stop. Unless everybody tells me this is a dumb idea and they hate it, I fully intend on keeping this going. That's ask number 1. Ask number 2 is I want you to tell me how often you want updates on this. Do you want me to update this monthly? Do you want me to update this quarterly? I won't do it weekly, I tell you that much. But if you want it monthly or if you want it quarterly, I'm happy to update this as well. And if you hate it and you hate my face, you can drop that in the comments below as well. Please don't do that. I love all of you. All right. Now, with that being said, let's look at the other sets that I wanted to index out. So, Sword and Shield booster box index right here. The biggest call out and the biggest change between this and the last one is, number 1, I have all of those columns where we show praise change and we show the what ifs. Those are gone because you've already seen what that looks like. You've already seen the impact. But I changed the share cost on this from $10,000 to $1,000. Remember what I said? Remember how I said all you got to do is move a decimal place over? That's what I did. And that's because these cards, we don't have any $16,000 boxes, right? We have Evolving Skies, which is King of the Hill, sitting there at $387. Then you got Sword and Shield at $300 or $290, and so on and so on and so on. So you'll see that our exposure to these boxes is different. We have the even distribution where you have $83 worth of each box, and then you have the weighted one as well. The next one I did is, you guys know how insanely irreparably, incredibly bullish I am on Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs, so I did a index fund of that as well, and you will see all of them down here: Evolving Skies, Crown Zenith, Celebrations. We even have the Scarlet and Violet ones that are already launched in here, so we have a big sample size. It will be exciting to see how all of these appreciate, because these are some of the newest things that we're going to be tracking, right? Like, it doesn't get much newer than Scarlet and Violet Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer boxes, so I'm excited to have some super modern stuff in here as well for us to track as it goes on. The next thing I looked at here was Roaring Skies. So I looked at the top 20 cards from Roaring Skies. I went ahead and pulled their prices in here because I want to start looking back a little bit. I've been focused heavily on modern and ultra modern, but believe it or not, I like the older stuff just as much, if not a little bit better than the ultra modern stuff. I think older stuff is highly, highly undervalued at this point. I think there's going to be a dramatic turn in the market at some point once more people flood into Pokemon. I've told you, I think Pokemon is going to overtake ball sports in regards to the most popular card collecting hobby in the world, to be honest with you. And I think when that happens, there's going to be a big shift towards the older sets. Remember, the original one in US was in 1999. I don't consider that vintage. 1999 isn't vintage. I was born in 1982. Like, I'm not vintage. So anyways, with that out of the way, I wanted to start inching this back a little bit. So I have Roaring Skies here. I picked Roaring Skies because I like the XY era. I like this has the Rayquazas in it. I love that Winona card. So anyways, I picked this. I'm going to be indexing Roaring Skies. Super, super fun exercise here for me. Next one I looked at, Lost Origin. Now, I really debated on doing Evolving Skies or Lost Origin, but I think we all feel really good about Evolving Skies and the future of it. If I get enough votes down below, I have no problem doing Evolving Skies, but I thought Lost Origin would be a really interesting one because all of us seem to fundamentally agree this is going to be a top 2 or top 3 set, so I did Lost Origins as well. Next one I didn't change the name on this, dang it. It still says Roaring Skies Singles Index, but this is Celebrations. I'm too deep in the video to go back and change it. So no, this is Celebrations, all right? So I wanted to do a specialty set. I wanted to do an anniversary set, and this is it. So you'll see the Charizard. We all know that's the top one. I included Celebrations and Celebrations Classic. So you got the Charizard, you got the Mew Secret, you got Flying Pikachu, you got Blastoise, you got Mewtwo EX. You have all of that in there. Now, as a whole, these specialty sets, their single cards haven't performed like the regular sets. So that's why I thought it would be really cool to go ahead and include this in here. Again, forget about the Roaring Skies. It's actually Celebrations. Dang it, I hate it when I do stupid stuff. But what you'll see here is really interesting. This is the share cost for these sets is $100 instead of $1,000. You'll see that the distribution column has $5 each. Some of these we have multiple cards, right? Surfing Pikachu, Flying Pikachu. You'll actually have a couple of these cards in the index fund versus the Charizard where you only end up with either 6% or 47% of that card based off of how we decide to distribute this in the long run. So there we go. That's the end of this, okay? I am really excited. Please, if you've made it to the end, listen. If you made it to the end and you enjoy this, hit the subscribe button. If you had fun, give us a thumbs up. If you have questions or comments, drop them down below. Specifically, how often, if you like this, you would like updates, and what other sets or sealed products would you like me to track as we move forward. I'm happy to do that. The reality is it was a ton of work getting all these spreadsheets built out, but now that they're built out, now that the functions are in Excel, I can make some additions and changes pretty easily. So happy to do that. Happy to put the legwork out there. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I have an awesome video coming out on Sunday. So again, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, drop a comment down below, and you all have an epic weekend. I appreciate you. See you, everybody.